You know how people say surprises can save a marriage? Yeah. Whoever came up with that advice clearly never walked into an airport arrivals hall and watched her husband perform a full-blown reunion scene with a woman who absolutely was not his wife. I didn't know my life was about to split into a clean before and after. I didn't know that the roses in my hands would end up in a trash can. I didn't know that 10 years of marriage could collapse in under 30 seconds. But that's exactly what happened. My name is Michelle Lawson. I'm 38 years old, and about a year and a half ago, I accidentally surprised my husband, and in the process, uncovered the affair that would end my marriage. It started with guilt. I'd been a terrible wife for almost a year, always working, always tired, always saying, "Maybe next weekend, Daniel," when he suggested dinner, a movie, even just a walk around the neighborhood. I buried myself in corporate meetings and quarterly projections like they mattered more than the man I married. So when I was stuck in a middle seat on a 4-hour flight back from Chicago, wedged between a screaming baby and a man who clearly thought deodorant was optional, I decided I was going to fix things. I changed my flight. Came home a full day early. I bought the biggest bouquet at one of those overpriced airport flower shops. Red roses mixed with white flowers I couldn't name if my life depended on it. I grabbed a box of fancy Swiss chocolates wrapped in gold foil, the kind that silently screams, "I'm trying." I practiced my line while walking through O'Hare. "Surprise, handsome, your favorite wife is home early." I felt hopeful. Nervous, determined. And then I turned the corner into the arrivals area. There he was, Daniel, my husband of nearly 10 years, standing near gate 7, looking radiant, and she was running toward him. Tall, perfect hair, blue dress that clung like it had signed a contract. She was holding flowers, not grocery store flowers, not last-minute apology flowers. A massive, breathtaking bouquet. Roses, lilies, orchids, the kind that required planning. The kind that cost real money. She didn't just walk to him. She ran. In heels. I watched her leap into his arms like she'd just survived a war, and he was her safe place. He caught her effortlessly, spinning her in a circle while she buried her face into his neck. They didn't care who saw. They didn't care that the flowers were being crushed between them. They didn't care about anything except each other. And I stood there 20 feet away, clutching my sad airport roses, watching my marriage die in real time. My arm went numb, not from the weight of the flowers, from understanding. It wasn't just that Daniel was cheating. It was that he had put more effort into this reunion, this woman, than I had put into our marriage in months, maybe years. I should have stormed over, screamed, thrown the roses at them, made a scene worthy of security escorting me out. Instead, my hands shook as I pulled out my phone. Click. One photo. Him holding her, her smiling like she'd won something. Evidence. Then I turned around, dropped my roses in the first trash can I saw. And somewhere between Terminal B and the parking garage, I started laughing. Not the funny kind. The kind that makes strangers walk faster. Sitting in my car, staring at that photo, I said out loud, "Congratulations, Michelle. You just walked into your own plot twist." And I had no idea yet how far I was willing to take it. Before gate 7. Before the photo. Before the trash can roses, there was a version of us that felt real. Daniel and I met when I was 28 and he was 30. It was one of those ordinary beginnings that people later romanticize. A mutual friend's birthday dinner. I showed up late, still in work clothes, apologizing for taking a conference call in the Uber. He was sitting at the end of the table, laughing too loudly at something that wasn't that funny. He noticed me immediately. "You look like you run the place," he'd said, nodding toward my blazer. "I usually do," I replied. He grinned. "Good. I like ambitious women." Back then it sounded like admiration, not competition, not resentment. Daniel worked in corporate partnerships for a tech solutions company, Titanium Solutions. He was charming in a relaxed, easy way, the kind of man who could talk to anyone. Waiters remembered him. Uber drivers told him their life stories. My parents liked him within 5 minutes. I liked him because he made me feel softer. At 28, I was already climbing the ladder at my consulting firm. 50-hour weeks, international clients, PowerPoint decks that felt more intimate than most of my friendships. Daniel was balance. He dragged me out for tacos at midnight. He convinced me to take a spontaneous weekend trip to Portland once just because flights were cheap. He made me laugh. And I made him stable. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. He did it the traditional way, got down on one knee at the Overlook where we'd had our third date. A simple solitaire ring from Tiffany & Company. I cried before he even finished the sentence. We married a year later. The first 5 years? Good. Honestly good. We bought our house 7 years ago after saving aggressively. Mortgage, joint checking account, separate Netflix profiles, the full adult package. We fought about normal things, whose turn it was to do laundry, whether we should refinance, which side of the bed was technically whose. We didn't have children, by mutual decision. We kept saying, maybe in a couple of years. Work always seemed urgent. Travel always seemed necessary. And somewhere in all that, we drifted. The last year before the airport, that's where things started to crack. I was promoted to senior director. It came with more money and less sleep. I told myself it was temporary, just until the next milestone, just until the next bonus cycle. Daniel started mentioning feeling secondary. You're married to your laptop, he'd joked one night. I laughed. She pays the mortgage. He didn't laugh back. I noticed changes, but I categorized them as normal marriage fatigue. He started going to the gym more, bought new fitted shirts, switched cologne. He said he wanted to feel sharper. I should have asked sharper for what? He began staying late at sponsorship meetings, talking about a big charity gala he was helping organize in partnership with a local children's hospital foundation. He seemed energized about it. I was relieved. At least one of us was excited about something. We still had intimacy, just less frequently. Conversations became logistical. Did you pay the electric bill? Are we going to your mother's on Sunday? I have a flight Thursday. There were moments, though. Moments that flickered like warning lights. One evening, I came home early and found him in the kitchen, texting quickly. He angled the screen away instinctively. Who's that? I'd asked lightly. Work, he said, without missing a beat. I didn't press. Another time, I suggested we finally try Morello's, the upscale Italian restaurant downtown we'd talked about for years. He shrugged. Too expensive for pasta. I agreed. Because I believed him. I wanted to believe him. We still said, I love you, before bed. He still kissed my forehead when I fell asleep on the couch. We still took Christmas photos in matching sweaters, like we were auditioning for a holiday card catalog. If you had looked at us from the outside, you would have said, they're solid. But inside, we were coexisting. And here's the part that hurts to admit. I knew something was off, my gut whispered. He was more attentive to his phone than to me. He smiled at notifications in a way I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. But I told myself I was being paranoid, that work stress was making me insecure, that strong women don't snoop. Strong women communicate. Strong women trust. Strong women don't assume the worst. So I trusted. And I kept working. And I let the distance widen because I thought marriage was sturdy enough to survive neglect. Standing at that airport, watching another woman leap into my husband's arms like she'd been waiting for him her whole life, I realized something devastating. The version of Daniel who used to look at me like that, he still existed. He just wasn't looking at me anymore. And I wasn't ready to face what that meant. Not yet. After the airport, I didn't confront him. That's the part people don't expect. They imagine screaming, throwing the photo at his face, demanding answers, slamming doors. But betrayal, when it first hits, doesn't always make you loud. Sometimes it makes you quiet, strategic. That night, I drove home on autopilot. Adele's Someone Like You came on the radio, and for once, I didn't roll my eyes. I turned it up and sang like my life depended on it. Somewhere between the second chorus and the bridge, I understood something I hadn't before. Sad songs don't make you sadder. They make you feel less insane. When I walked into our house, it felt different. Same furniture, same framed photos, same faint scent of his cologne lingering in the hallway, but it felt staged, like a set piece for a lie. I microwaved leftover pizza and sat on the couch in silence. Around 10:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Daniel, flight okay, miss you, miss me. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. 6 hours earlier, he had been holding another woman like she was oxygen. I typed back carefully. Flight was fine, traffic was terrible. I'm exhausted, probably crashing early. Love you. I even added a sleepy face emoji. If I was going to burn this marriage down, I wanted clean evidence first. He responded instantly. Poor thing, get some rest. I'll be quiet when I get home. Dinner with Claire tonight, but I won't be late. Claire, his colleague from the charity gala committee. I had never met Claire, and yet suddenly I had a face to match the name. The blue dress, the flowers, the way she ran. I typed back a thumbs up emoji. Then I opened my laptop. I created a folder. Project Fresh Start. Sarcastic? Absolutely. Necessary? Completely. I uploaded the airport photo, noted the date, the time, gate 7. I even zoomed in on the bouquet she brought him. Larger, more expensive than the ones melting in my trash can at O'Hare. Then I logged into our shared credit card account. I had always managed finances. It was practical. I was better with numbers. Daniel never complained. The transaction history loaded slowly, like it knew it was about to betray me too. There it was. Morello's, $240. I stared at the date. 3 weeks ago. That night he told me he was working late. The same restaurant he said was too expensive when I suggested it. Hotel charges followed. Riverside Inn, $189. Grand Excelsior, $253. Metropolitan Suites, $312. Within 2 months, I did the math. Over $2,000. Paid with our joint card. I didn't cry. I screenshotted everything, saved each image carefully. Then I noticed something that made my pulse spike. A charge from Tiffany and Company, $1,476. I leaned back in my office chair, staring at the number. 10 years ago, Daniel had nearly fainted over the cost of my engagement ring. We'd joked about it for months, and now he was buying someone else something from Tiffany's. For a second, I wondered if it was for me. Some delayed anniversary gift. Then I checked the date. 2 weeks ago, no special occasion. Just a random Tuesday. My chest tightened. I opened our shared iCloud account. Years ago, he'd linked everything for convenience. Password recovery emails still went to an account I controlled. He never changed it. 20 minutes later, I was inside. Photos, messages, entire conversations. And there she was, Claire Bennett. Now I had a full name. Tall, polished. Corporate sponsorship director for Titanium Solutions, the company Daniel kept praising. The photos made my stomach churn. Selfies at the beach, hiking trails, brunch mimosas, concert lights in the background, Coldplay judging by the stage setup. In one caption, she'd written, my person, my person. I almost laughed. I had the marriage certificate and joint tax returns to prove I was legally his person. Apparently, legality doesn't compete with excitement. There were text messages. Flirty, intimate, planned, counting the hours. Last night was perfect. New beginnings. New beginnings. He was building a future while still sleeping next to me. And here's what hit hardest. He wasn't careless. He was organized. Hotels booked during sponsorship meetings. Dinner reservations disguised as work events. Excuses layered with believable detail. This wasn't a drunken mistake. It was a parallel life. And the more I uncovered, the clearer something became. This wasn't just about lust. This was effort, energy, time, planning. The same effort I used to get from him. The same attention I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Around midnight, I heard the front door open. His footsteps. His keys on the counter. He peeked into the living room where I lay on the couch pretending to sleep. He brushed hair off my face gently, kissed my forehead. "I love you," he whispered. The audacity almost impressed me. I kept my breathing steady, didn't move, didn't react. But something shifted inside me right then. Not rage, not even heartbreak. Clarity. If he could lie this smoothly, I could act just as convincingly. And that was when the real plan began forming. Not a screaming confrontation, not an emotional breakdown. Precision. Documentation. Timing. Because if Daniel was going to rewrite our marriage behind my back, I was going to make sure I controlled the final chapter. The moment that truly shattered me wasn't the airport. It wasn't the credit card statements. It wasn't even the Tiffany's charge. It was the charity gala. Because that was the night Daniel looked me in the eye and invited me to meet the woman he was sleeping with. 2 weeks after the airport, I became the version of myself he missed, or thought he missed. I cooked more, left little notes in his briefcase, showed up at his office once with lunch, just because. I laughed at his stories. I listened when he talked about titanium solutions and the upcoming fundraiser for the Children's Hospital Foundation. He ate it up. One night, while we were folding laundry together, something we hadn't done in months, he smiled and said, "It feels like us again." I smiled back. Yes, it does. Inside, I was cataloging everything. The gala had been in planning for 6 months. Black tie, corporate sponsors, media presence. Daniel was deeply involved, coordinating partnerships. Claire's company was the main sponsor. I knew exactly where it was being held. The Grand Excelsior, the same hotel listed on our credit card statement for $253. "You're coming, right?" Daniel asked one evening while reviewing seating charts at the kitchen table. "I already put your name down months ago." "Of course," I said softly. "Wouldn't miss it." He leaned over and kissed my temple. "You're the best." "And Claire will be there," he added casually. "She's been a huge help. I want you to meet her." The nerve of him. "Of course," I replied evenly. "I'd love to." The day of the gala arrived like a slow-moving storm. I stood in our bedroom, adjusting my earrings while Daniel tied his bow tie behind me. We looked like a magazine spread, polished, coordinated, enviable. "You look incredible," he said, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You clean up well yourself," I replied. "Everything's going to be perfect," he said. I met his eyes in the mirror. "Oh, I know." The Grand Excelsior Ballroom was overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, tables layered with silverware no one knew how to use properly. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed. The kind of event people post about for weeks. Daniel was in his element. Confident, engaging, magnetic. And then I saw her. Claire Bennett. The blue dress woman from Gate 7, except tonight she wore red. Fitted, elegant, commanding. She laughed at something near the entrance, and Daniel's gaze flickered toward her instinctively, subtle but unmistakable. I stepped closer to him. "Is that Claire?" I asked lightly. "Yes," he said, clearing his throat. "Come on, I'll introduce you." We walked toward her together. I watched her expression shift when she saw me. Recognition. Panic. Professional composure layered over it instantly. "Claire," Daniel said, his voice just a fraction too controlled. "This is my wife, Michelle." "Wife." The word hung there. Claire extended her hand. "Michelle, I've heard so much about you." I smiled. "I'm sure you have." Her handshake was firm, cool, polished. "So you're the brains behind all of this?" I gestured toward the ballroom. She laughed lightly. "Team effort." Daniel stood between us like a man balancing on a wire. For the next hour, I stayed close. I observed the glances, the micro expressions, the way his body angled toward her when he thought I wasn't looking, the way she touched his arm briefly while discussing sponsorships. And then came the photos. The event photographer, Marcus Chen, began taking formal shots of sponsors and organizers. "Let's get one of the 3 of you," someone suggested. Daniel hesitated for half a second. I stepped forward. "Yes, absolutely." I positioned myself between them, his wife on one side, his lover on the other. Marcus snapped photo after photo. In one, Daniel's smile faltered. In another, Claire's jaw tightened. In all of them, I looked calm, poised, unaware. Or so they thought. Later in the evening, as dessert was served, I raised my champagne glass and leaned toward Daniel. "This has been such a memorable night," I whispered. He smiled. "Yeah?" "New beginnings," I added softly. The color drained from his face. He knew that phrase. It was in her Instagram caption. He searched my eyes for confirmation, for accusation, for explosion. He found none. Just a quiet smile. The speech began. Applause filled the room. Claire took the stage briefly to thank sponsors. Daniel stood near the back, hands clasped, looking unsettled. When the night finally ended, he was quieter than usual in the car. "You were amazing tonight," he said, gripping the steering wheel. "So were you," I replied. He glanced at me. "Everything okay?" I turned to him slowly. Why wouldn't it be? He held my gaze for a second too long, then looked back at the road. That was the inciting moment. Not because I confronted him, but because he knew something had shifted. He just didn't know how much. And neither did I. Not yet, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't going to end with shouting. It was going to end with paperwork and timing and precision, and he would never see it coming. The night of the gala, I didn't sleep. Daniel did. That's what amazes me now. He lay beside me, breathing evenly, one arm draped lazily across his chest, like he hadn't just spent the entire evening standing 3 feet away from the woman he was sleeping with. While I smiled for photos, I stared at the ceiling. There's a strange quiet that comes after certainty. Before the airport, I had suspicion. After the airport, I had evidence. After the gala, I had confirmation. He knew I knew something. He just didn't know what. And that uncertainty was working in my favor. Around 2:17 a.m., he shifted slightly and murmured, "You okay?" "Yes," I whispered. It wasn't even a lie. I wasn't okay in the emotional sense, but I was okay in the strategic sense. The next morning, he made coffee. He never makes coffee. "Big night," he said lightly, handing me my mug. "You handled yourself like a pro." I studied his face. He was scanning me for cracks. "I've been to enough corporate events," I replied. "I know how to smile." He hesitated. Then casually, "Did you like Claire?" There it was. I took a slow sip. "She seems capable." He watched me carefully. "Yeah, she is." Silence stretched. If I had exploded then, he would have denied everything, called me paranoid, said I misread the airport, accused me of insecurity. Instead, I nodded and walked upstairs to shower. Under the hot water, my composure cracked for the first time. Not sobbing, not screaming. Just a quiet release. I pressed my forehead against the tile and asked myself the question that matters most in betrayal. What did I ignore? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Affairs don't appear out of nowhere. They grow in silence. I replayed the last year in my mind. The late nights, the new cologne, the gym membership, the subtle distance, and my own absence. I had been exhausted, preoccupied, ambitious, but I had never cheated. Neglect is not betrayal. There's a difference. That realization steadied me. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't unfaithful. Later that afternoon, Daniel suggested we go out for dinner, just us. It almost made me laugh. He was course-correcting. "I actually have work to catch up on," I said. "Quarterly review." He frowned slightly. "Again?" "Yes, again." For the first time in months, I saw something flicker across his face. Insecurity. The same insecurity he'd probably used to justify his affair. That evening, he came into my office at home and leaned against the doorframe. "Michelle, are we okay?" The audacity! I turned slowly in my chair. "Are you asking because something happened?" I asked evenly. His jaw tightened. "No, I just feel like you've been distant." Distant. I folded my hands calmly. "I've been working." "That's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. He was afraid I knew, but he wasn't ready to confess, not unless forced. "We just haven't felt connected," he said carefully. I stood, walked toward him. stopped inches away. We haven't felt connected, I repeated softly. Is that why you've been so busy lately? His eyes searched mine. I've been working on the gala. I held his gaze for 3 full seconds, long enough to make him uncomfortable. Right, I said. Then I walked past him. He exhaled behind me. Relief. That relief was confirmation. That night, I opened my laptop again. More screenshots. More documentation. Text messages had escalated. I saw one from Claire. Last night was torture. Standing next to you like that. His response? Worth it. Soon we won't have to pretend. Soon. The word burned. Soon meant plans. Soon meant timeline. Soon meant I was being phased out of my own marriage. My chest tightened. Not with heartbreak this time, but with something colder. Resolve. At midnight, Daniel rolled toward me in bed. Hey, he whispered. I love you. There's something almost fascinating about watching someone lie in the dark. I know, I replied. He pulled me closer. And for a split second, I let myself feel the weight of 10 years. The vacations, the Christmas mornings, the inside jokes. Then I remembered Gate 7. I gently pulled away. Good night. The first confrontation had happened. Quiet, subtle, unspoken. And he felt it. He just didn't realize that while he was worrying about my emotional distance, I was finalizing my exit strategy. If betrayal is a wound, escalation is the infection. It spreads quietly at first. Then suddenly, everything is inflamed. 3 days after the gala, Daniel's mother called. Michelle, sweetheart, she began warmly. Daniel mentioned you seemed stressed lately. Everything all right? There it was. He'd already started controlling the narrative. I'm fine, Linda, I replied. Work's just busy. Well, she sighed dramatically. Marriage takes effort. Men need reassurance. You don't want him feeling unappreciated. Unappreciated. I gripped the phone tighter. I appreciate my husband, I said evenly. Good, she replied, because women who focus too much on careers sometimes forget what really matters. I almost laughed. Daniel was sleeping with another woman, and somehow I was the cautionary tale. I'll keep that in mind, I said politely. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I documented. I added a note to my folder. Mother-in-law establishing emotional neglect narrative. Because now I understood something critical. If Daniel was preparing to leave, he was going to frame it as mutual drift, as loneliness, as my ambition, not his infidelity. That afternoon, I met with Diana Reed. Her office felt cold in the most reassuring way. Marble floors, clean lines, no wasted emotion. I slid my phone across her desk. I need this airtight. She reviewed the airport photo first, then the credit card statements, then the messages. Her expression barely shifted. How long? She asked. Minimum 3 months, possibly longer, she nodded. Financial dissipation of marital assets, infidelity, coordinated deception. You have leverage. I don't want drama, I said. I want protection. Diana steepled her fingers. Then we control timing. She explained the strategy clearly. Continue acting normal. Do not confront. Gather final documentation. Choose service date strategically. You want him comfortable, she said. Complacent. I understood that language. Corporate negotiations had taught me something valuable. People are most vulnerable when they think they're safe. Over the next 2 weeks, Daniel became affectionate again, almost desperate. Random flowers from the grocery store. Dinner reservations. Back rubs. He was compensating, and I let him. Meanwhile, the evidence kept piling up. More hotel charges, more texts, more soon. Then came the escalation I hadn't anticipated. Claire posted a photo on Instagram. Not explicit, just suggestive. A dimly lit restaurant, 2 wine glasses, a man's hand visible in the corner. Caption, building something real. My stomach flipped. Public hints. That meant she was growing impatient. That meant Daniel was promising more than he had delivered. That meant timeline acceleration. That evening, I decided to test him. "Have you ever thought about separating?" I asked casually while we were cleaning up dinner. He froze. "What?" "Hypothetically," I shrugged, "if we ever felt stuck." His reaction was immediate. "No, of course not. Why would you even say that?" I watched his pulse jump in his neck. "Just a question." He moved closer. "Michelle, are you unhappy?" I met his eyes. "Are you?" Silence. Then, "No." It was almost impressive how easily he said it. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened his laptop, not snooping, confirming his email was still logged in. There was a thread with Claire titled December. I opened it. "I can't keep waiting forever. You said after the gala we'd talk. You promised." His reply, "Soon. Just need to handle things carefully. She can't suspect anything. She can't suspect anything." I closed the laptop slowly. Something inside me hardened completely. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't emotional weakness. This was calculation. He wasn't torn. He was managing 2 lives. The next escalation came at dinner with his sister, Rachel. Halfway through pasta, Rachel smiled at me and said, "Daniel's been under so much pressure lately. You know how sensitive he is." Sensitive. I almost choked. "Yes," I said calmly. "I do." She leaned closer conspiratorially. Men stray when they feel disconnected. The table went silent. Daniel shot her a warning look. I held my fork steady. "Good thing mine hasn't," I said smoothly. Rachel blinked. Daniel laughed too loudly. The rest of dinner was strained. On the drive home, he snapped. "What was that about?" "What was what?" "That comment. I just said you haven't strayed." He tightened his grip on the wheel. "You're being weird lately." I turned toward the window. Maybe I'm just paying attention. That was the first time fear flickered openly in his eyes. And fear means pressure. Pressure means cracks. 3 nights later, I received an email from Diana. "Documents ready. We can file anytime." I stared at the screen for a long time. Timing. I thought about the gala, the airport, the Tiffany's charge. Then I chose the date. December 19th. 3 weeks away. Long enough for Daniel to believe he'd gotten away with everything. Long enough for Claire to grow restless. Long enough for me to prepare dinner. Because if this marriage was ending, it was ending on my terms. People think revenge feels powerful. It doesn't. Not at first. It feels like grief wearing armor. The week before December 19th was the lowest I've ever felt in my life. Because even with all the evidence, all the strategy, all the quiet strength I was projecting, I still loved him. That's the part no one talks about. You can know someone betrayed you and still miss the version of them who didn't. Daniel was being unusually attentive that week, bringing me coffee in bed, asking about my meetings, sitting closer on the couch. He was nervous. Claire's messages had grown sharper. "You said this month. I can't keep hiding. I deserve honesty." Deserve honesty. The irony almost crushed me. One night, Daniel reached for my hand while we were watching television. "I've been thinking," he said softly. "About what?" I wondered. "Maybe we should take a trip. Just us. Reset. Reset." As if betrayal was a software glitch. I studied his face. There was something almost genuine there. Not love, not exactly, but fear of losing control. "A trip won't fix what's broken," I replied quietly. He frowned. "What's broken?" I held his gaze. "You tell me." For a second, just a second, I thought he might confess. His throat moved. His jaw tightened. But then he looked away. "Nothing's broken," he said. That was the moment something inside me truly let go. Not because he cheated, but because he had the opportunity to choose honesty. And chose cowardice instead. That night, I went downstairs alone after he fell asleep. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets. No dramatic music. No tears streaming endlessly. Just silence. I looked around the house we bought together. The framed wedding photo still hanging near the staircase. The dent in the wall from when we moved in and dropped a lamp. The couch we argued over for 2 weeks before purchasing. 10 years. Reduced to evidence folders and legal strategy. For the first time since the airport, I allowed myself to feel it fully. The humiliation, the comparison, the image of Claire running toward him, the realization that he once looked at me that way. And I asked myself a brutal question. If he had chosen me again, would I have forgiven him? The answer terrified me. Maybe. Which meant serving him wasn't just about justice. It was about protecting myself from my own softness. The next day at work, I barely focused. My assistant asked if I was feeling well. I'm fine, I said automatically. I wasn't. I felt like I was living two lives, the composed executive during the day and the silent witness to my own marriage collapse at night. Claire posted again, a photo of a sunrise. Caption, soon. I stared at that word for a long time. Soon meant she believed him. Soon meant he was feeding her promises. Soon meant I was still sharing a bed with a man planning to leave me. And that realization hurt more than the affair itself. On Wednesday, Daniel's mother texted again. Marriage is a choice every day. Don't give up too easily. I stared at the message. I wasn't the one giving up. I wasn't the one building a second life. That night, Daniel tried initiating intimacy. I froze. Not dramatically. Just still. He pulled back. Are you not attracted to me anymore? The projection was almost painful. It's not that, I said. Then what is it? I looked at him for a long time, and for the first time since Gate 7, my voice cracked. I don't feel safe. He looked confused. Safe from what? From the truth, I thought. But I didn't answer, because if I said it out loud, everything would accelerate. And I needed 3 more days. Just 3. December 18th, the night before. I barely slept. He slept soundly. At 3:12 a.m., I opened my phone and looked at the airport photo again. Zoomed in on my husband's face. He looked happy. That hurt more than anything. Not guilt, not hesitation, joy. By morning, I had stopped crying entirely. Something had shifted. Grief had run its course. What remained wasn't rage. It was clarity. December 19th. Dinner would be ready at 5:45. Doorbell at 6 o'clock. And by 6:05, my marriage would officially be over. Not with screaming, not with drama, but with documentation. And that quiet finality, that was the hardest part of all. December 19th arrived quietly. No thunder, no dramatic music. Just an ordinary Friday morning with sunlight coming through the kitchen windows like nothing was about to end. Daniel kissed my cheek before leaving for work. Dinner tonight? He asked, smiling. Just us? Just us, I confirmed. He looked pleased. Comfortable. Certain. That certainty was the final confirmation I needed. After he left, I called in sick to work. My voice sounded steady when I did it. I spent the morning cleaning the house obsessively. Vacuum lines in the carpet, counters wiped spotless, candles arranged precisely. If I was closing this chapter, I wanted everything in order. Around noon, Diana emailed, "Process server confirmed, 6 p.m. I stared at the time. There is something surreal about scheduling the end of your marriage down to the minute. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. Claire. Not to me, to Daniel, but I still had access. Tonight, we need clarity. His reply came at 3:04 p.m. Soon. Just trust me. Soon. That word again. But something else caught my eye. A draft email in his outbox. Subject, transition plan. I opened it. It was addressed to Claire. I think she suspects something. I'll talk to her after the holidays. We just need to be patient. After the holidays, he was going to sit through Christmas with me, smile in family photos, exchange gifts, all while planning his exit. The air left my lungs. That was the final turning point, not the affair, not the lies, but the manipulation of time. He wasn't just betraying me, he was budgeting me, allocating me to a schedule. I closed the laptop. And in that moment, something inside me shifted completely. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want humiliation. I wanted control back, and I had it. At 5:30 p.m., I changed into a simple black dress. Not glamorous, not seductive, just composed. I set the table with wine glasses and cloth napkins. Dinner was ready at 5:45. Daniel walked in at 5:47, loosening his tie. "Wow," he said, looking around. "This is beautiful." "I thought we deserved something special," I replied. He smiled. For a brief second, the tiniest flicker, I saw the man I married, and it hurt. We ate normally at first. He told me about work, about a sponsorship issue, about Claire being stressed. "Claire's been overwhelmed," he said, not noticing the irony. "I'm sure she has," I replied evenly. At 5:59 p.m., I glanced at the clock. 6 p.m. The doorbell rang. Daniel blinked. "Are we expecting someone?" "I believe that's for you," I said calmly. He walked to the door. I followed slowly. When he opened it, the process server stood there, holding an envelope. "Daniel Lawson?" the man asked. "Yes." "You've been served." The envelope changed hands. Time slowed. Daniel closed the door slowly and looked down at the documents. "What is this?" he asked, confused. "Open it," I said. He tore the seal. His eyes moved quickly across the page. Divorce petition. Filed. Grounds. Adultery. Dissipation of marital assets. His face drained of color. "Michelle," he whispered. "What is this?" "O'Hare Airport. Gate 7. Around 2 p.m., December 3rd, I said calmly. "Does that ring any bells?" His body stiffened. "You were there?" he asked. "I surprised you." Silence. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo. He stared at it like he was looking at a ghost. "Michelle, it's not what it looks like. You literally jumped into another woman's arms while she held flowers larger than the ones I brought you." He ran a hand through his hair. "I can explain." "Please do." He opened his mouth, closed it. "It just happened." I laughed softly. "No, it didn't." I walked to the kitchen counter and placed a folder in front of him. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, Tiffany & Company, printed screenshots of text messages, Instagram captions, my person, new beginnings, soon. His hands started shaking. "How long have you known?" he asked. "Long enough." He sank into a chair. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I asked quietly. "After Christmas?" His eyes snapped up. So he knew I'd seen the email. "It wasn't serious," he said desperately. $2,000 in hotel rooms isn't serious. "It was a mistake." 63 transactions, I replied calmly. "That's not a mistake. That's a hobby." He covered his face with his hands. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You didn't want to lose comfort," I corrected. Silence filled the room. And then something unexpected happened. He looked up. Not angry, not defensive, scared. "Is there any way back from this?" he asked. And for a split second, I saw the fork in the road. Forgiveness or finality. The old Michelle might have hesitated. The woman sitting there now did not. "No," I said softly. "You already left." That was the turning point. Not when he was served. Not when he saw the evidence, but when I realized I wasn't fighting for him anymore. I was choosing myself. The silence after I said no was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Daniel stared at me like he was waiting for me to take it back. "I can fix this," he said finally, voice breaking. "We can go to counseling. I'll end it. I'll call her right now." He reached for his phone. I didn't stop him because it didn't matter anymore. He dialed. It rang once. He hung up before she answered. Cowardice, even at the end. "You don't get to make grand gestures now," I said quietly. "You made your choice repeatedly. This is just the consequence." He paced the kitchen, running both hands through his hair. "What are you telling people?" he asked suddenly. "The truth," I replied. His head snapped up. "Michelle, you should have thought about that before you used our joint card to finance your affair." The word affair landed harder than anything else. He stopped pacing. "I never meant for it to go this far." But it did. He looked around the house like he was seeing it for the first time. "This is our home." "Yes," I said, "it is." "And you're just throwing it away?" I held his gaze. "No, I'm protecting it." 3 days later, he moved out. Not dramatically. no shouting. He packed clothes into suitcases while I worked from home in my office. At one point, he paused in the doorway. "Are you really this calm?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "I'm just done." He left that afternoon. And by evening, social media exploded. Claire posted nothing for 2 days. Then suddenly, "Choosing happiness is hard, but necessary." Comments flooded in. Support, encouragement, applause. No one knew the timeline yet. No one knew about Gate 7. But word travels fast in professional circles, especially when Diana Reed sends formal notices citing adultery and financial misconduct. Daniel's employer requested a meeting with him within a week. Titanium Solutions had strict policies about relationships affecting sponsorship optics. Apparently, corporate partnership looks different when it involves hotel receipts. His mother called me twice. I didn't answer. Rachel texted, "This didn't have to get ugly." I stared at that message. It wasn't ugly. It was documented. Daniel called 47 times in the first week. I answered once. "We need to talk like adults," he said. "We are," I replied, "through attorneys." "I made a mistake." "You made 63, I corrected. Silence. Then softer. "I never stopped loving you." That one hurt. Because maybe in his version of love, he hadn't. But love without loyalty is convenience. And I refused to be convenient. The legal process moved faster than he expected. Diana was precise, clinical, ruthless when necessary. Financial dissipation arguments hit hard. Hotel receipts, luxury purchases, Tiffany and Company. She positioned it not as emotional betrayal, but economic misconduct. Judges understand money. The settlement came down 60-40 in my favor. I kept the house. Retirement accounts. Savings. Daniel kept his car. Personal belongings. And Claire. Ironically, that part didn't last. 3 months after the divorce finalized, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Claire and Daniel were taking space. Apparently, relationships built in secrecy struggle in daylight. When you remove the adrenaline of hiding, what remains has to stand on its own. Sometimes it doesn't. The final decree arrived on a Tuesday in February. 10 years summarized in legal language. I sat on the couch, my couch now, and read every page carefully. When I finished, I poured a glass of wine. Not celebratory, not mournful, just quiet. The house felt different that night. Not empty, peaceful. No tension in the air. No phone lighting up face down on the table. No wondering who he was texting. Just silence. I ordered Chinese food, the too greasy place he always refused. Ate directly from the container. Watched whatever I wanted. Went to bed at 9:30. And for the first time in over a year, I slept. Deeply. Without checking my phone. Without replaying images of Gate 7. The fallout wasn't explosive. It was slow. Professional reputation damaged. Family relationships strained. Friends choosing sides quietly. But I didn't have to do anything dramatic. The truth did the work. And when people asked if I was bitter, I surprised myself. "No," I said. "I'm relieved." Because sometimes the collapse of something false is the only way to build something real. A year later, I found myself back at O'Hare. Same parking garage, same terminal, same Gate 7. But this time, I wasn't holding roses. I was holding coffee, waiting. His name was Ethan Chen. We met 6 months after the divorce finalized. Not dramatically, not through friends, not through some cinematic rescue. I grabbed the wrong latte at a coffee shop downtown, and he laughed instead of correcting me. He's a veterinarian. Calm hands, soft voice, the kind of man who smells faintly like antiseptic and peppermint gum. The kind who leaves his phone face up on the table. The kind who answers texts in front of you without flinching. Trust felt uncomfortable at first. Transparency felt suspicious. That's what betrayal does. It rewires your nervous system. But Ethan never rushed me, never overpromised, never said soon. At O'Hare, his flight from a veterinary conference in Portland was delayed by 20 minutes. I stood near gate 7 and stared at the exact spot where Daniel once stood holding Claire. I waited for a dramatic emotion, anger, bitterness, flashbacks. Instead, nothing overwhelming, just memory. Like looking at an old scar that doesn't hurt anymore. My phone buzzed. Just landed. Warning, I smell like airplane and bought you something ridiculous. I smiled. A few minutes later, I saw him. Jeans, hoodie, messy hair from travel. He spotted me and his face lit up. Not performative, not exaggerated. Real. He dropped his suitcase and walked quickly toward me. No hesitation, no scanning the crowd, just me. He wrapped his arms around me and pulled me close. I missed you, he said into my hair. And here's the difference. When Claire ran toward Daniel, I was invisible. When Ethan ran toward me, I was the destination. I missed you too, I said. He pulled back and handed me a small gift bag. Inside was a mug. It read, "World's okayest girlfriend." I laughed out loud. He had seen my old "World's okayest wife" mug months ago and remembered. That attention to detail, that's care. We walked out of the terminal hand in hand. Same airport, completely different life. Here's what I learned. Trust your instincts when they whisper the first time. Don't wait for them to scream. Ambition doesn't justify betrayal. Neglect can be repaired. Infidelity is a decision. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes the calmest person in the room is the one in control. And most importantly, being cheated on isn't proof you weren't enough. It's proof someone else wasn't capable of loyalty. If Daniel hadn't jumped into Claire's arms at gate 7, I might still be in a marriage built on erosion. The betrayal hurt, but it exposed the truth, and the truth set me free. So yes, he chose someone else at that airport, but I chose myself, and that made all the difference.